All right, Shalom. First and foremost, Barakath Yahweh, Barakath Yahweh Shai, Barakath Yahweh, Barakath Yahweh Shai, Barakath Yahweh, Barakath Yahweh Shai. Call Halayimla Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Rakaha Kwadash. Double honors to the beloved apostles and elders of Great Millstone, better known as GMS, who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect, the Tabernacle of David, Salakia, beginning with the 144,000 and the rest of the men, women, and children out of the 12 tribes whom Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, will ultimately have mercy upon in these last days. And I'm your brother Matizabath from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Melbourne, Australia. All right. And just coming with another news and prophecy update pursuant to Esau's lockstep agenda, which is ultimately going to lead to a surveillance state, all right, which will happen on a global stage when they usher in their new world order, also known as their enterprise, all right. And I sent this news update here in Australia to the beloved brother Yashar from GMS down under Australia. All right, subscribe to his YouTube page so that you may be edified. The brother puts up very edifying lessons. And the title of this video from Sky News Australia is entitled Death of a Free Internet. All right, social media ban shows how, you see that word there, politicians think we are. All right, and so essentially what we have here is these top elites, all right, the upper echelon or whatever it is, whatever sort of title you want to put on them. They're, they're being found out, all right, as the scriptures tells us in the book of Jeremiah, all right, I have made Esau bare, all right. And you know what, let's start off with that precept to get the lesson going, all right. This is Jeremiah 49 and 10. It says, but I, speaking of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh is his name, have made Esau bare. I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. And so now we're in a time of the man of sin being revealed. Okay. And as we continue to get closer and closer to this man's rulership coming to a complete end, until Yahweh Shai makes his second return, all right, you're going to see things get a lot worse. But as they continue to get worse, you're going to see this devil's true horns, all right, as time progresses. Remember, the scriptures tells us in Revelation, the 12th chapter, let's also get that precept. Okay, Revelation 12 and 12. It says, therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he have but a short time. All right. And don't get tripped up or simple minded when you read this verbatim. This is not talking about literal spiritual demon Satan. All right. The devil in this context goes into a man. All right. Who's coming in the working of Satan, mentioned in 2 Thessalonians, the second chapter. Really, the word devil, when you go into the Greek word, actually goes back to the Greek word diabolos, which means a false accuser. All right. And who's the accuser of thy brethren, as the scriptures tells us? All right. When you go back up to verse 10, it says, and I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our power and the power of his anointed. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our power day and night. All right. And that brother that's being cast down is none other than Esau, Edom, beginning with the top banking elites. All right. And so you have to understand that now they're the ones that are in a position of power. And as you're going to see here, all right, they're losing control of the narrative when it comes to them wanting to shut the well, not so much shut the internet down, but they want to police it. All right, because the internet is causing a lot of havoc for them right now. All right. And it's disrupting their NWO plans. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut up and I'm going to play this news. I will probably stop it from time to time just to interject. all right, and to commentate on it. But nevertheless, this is fair use, fair use.
First, to the so-called social media ban, which threatens to place extraordinary restrictions on the internet, driven, of course, by our overzealous lawmakers and power-hungry bureaucrats.
YouTube will join its stablemates in the social media landscape, including Instagram, TikTok and Snapchat, as part of the government's social media ban for those under the age of 16 that will come into effect in December of this year.
Right. So to get everybody up to scratch, basically what's taking place here in this country is back in April of 2024 last year, the Australian government has signed what was known as a digital ID. All right. And is set to come full effect in December of 2025, where they would require a lot of its citizens to, open a biometric ID account where it would take care of things like your Medicare, your driver's license, your passport, all of your details and filing will be under this new digital ID system, especially when you're traveling, whether that be domestic or also international. OK, now what they don't tell you is behind the scenes. OK, you had a gentleman here by the name of Malcolm Turnbull. All right, who's an opposition leader. I believe he's liberal. I could be wrong. He's either liberal or Labor. I always get the two mixed up. But last year, he actually did a demonstration of an Australian citizen going to an actual drinking pub, and they will have to scan using the barcode on their cell phone to the bartender in order to get a drink. But here's the catch. What they don't tell you how this is going to be implemented when this comes to full effect this December is when you scan the barcode, all of your details will come up. And that particular pub, wherever you're drinking at, they have the right to accept you and, give you your request or whatever it is that you want to drink, or they have the ability to deny you access to even buy anything. OK, and what that is called, ladies and gentlemen, is a social credit score system. Let's look that up really quickly on Google so you can understand what it is that I'm saying. All right, what is a social credit score system? OK, it says the social credit system is a record system so that businesses, individuals, and government institutions can be tracked and evaluated for trustworthiness. OK, this is what they're not telling you behind the scenes on what this ID digital system is really going to look like. What they're doing is they're trying to sell you the illusion that is for them to make sure that we can identify illegitimate behavior online. We need to protect our children. Therefore, we want to put an age limit. OK, if you are under the age of 16, OK, you cannot create an account such as on Facebook, TikTok. Now they've added in YouTube. That's what they're trying to sell to the public. But really, it's to set the stage where it's not just going to be an age consent, but it's going to trickle down to every single Australian citizen within this country. OK, and this is not only happening in this country. What you have to understand, this is going to be a global effect because other countries will implement this same strategy. It's already happening in China. It's already happening in Uganda. OK, it's already starting to happen in the U.S. OK, Donald Trump already signed in with a company named Palantir, where they're now trying to usher in drones and facial recognition ID cameras. OK, so this is the next big step. It says it is based on varying degrees of whitelisting, termed red listing in China, and blacklisting. OK, this is what it's going to. And they showed you things like this in the TV series Black Mirror. OK, so let's play some more.
The legislation isn't what it first appears to be. Labor went to the election with a very minimalistic sell on these laws. It was about the kids, it was about preventing harm, and it was about only keeping that harm away from vulnerable kids. Communications Minister Annika Wells repeated these slogans this week.
The evidence cannot be ignored that 4 out of 10 Australian kids report that their most recent harm was on YouTube. And as parents, we are really trying our best when it comes to the internet, but it is like trying to teach your kids to swim in the open ocean with the rips and the sharks compared to at the local council pool. We can't control the ocean, but we can police the sharks.
All right, so keep in mind, she said we can't control the ocean, but we can police the sharks. All right, remember that statement. We can police the sharks, because what I'm going to show you is they've actually had this planned out. All right, going all the way back in 2010, where you have a documentation known as the scenarios of integration from the Rockefeller Foundation PDF file, which we're going to tap into. And I'm going to show you that these devils, they had this well planned out, and it was just about how were they going to implement such changes, all right, to the masses of the people. We're going to see that a little bit later on, but let's continue.
First of all, is this seriously the intellect of the person deciding these laws? A childish analogy about policing sharks in the ocean. It doesn't even make sense. Oceans are dangerous for kids, but you don't ban them. You teach kids how to swim and navigate rips. But even worse, the laws don't make any sense, because for all of the government's bluster about harm on social media, the laws do nothing to prevent harm. All they do is force age verification for account holders. That is it. Children can still access YouTube and watch whatever non-age restricted content that they want. A young journalist known as Leo Puglisi tried to explain this to the ABC this week. He started a digital media company when he was a kid.
From your experience with young people, what are young people using YouTube for?
They're using it for everything. I mean, it's hard to put into words really how widespread YouTube is in terms of its content and in terms of, what could potentially be harder to access. People watch sport on there, they'll watch news, they'll watch entertainment. They will literally be able to watch just about almost everything. And I think it's also really important to mention out of this that all that harmful content that the government's been talking about, which I agree obviously exists, that isn't banned. I think as it stands, I think young people are still going to be able to watch YouTube in a logged out state. So all that harmful content is still actually going to be online. This ban is ineffective. It doesn't actually tackle what the government says it's tackling.
Do these politicians actually think that you're so stupid that you will buy this? The laws don't do what they say they will. So what really is going on here? It isn't even just about social media. Labor also wants to force you to verify your age to have a search engine account. Liberal Senator Alex Antic explains.
The Internet Search Engine Services Online Safety Code, as we've heard today, is set to come into effect in December this year. And what it is going to effectively do is require internet search engine providers to confirm the age of their account holders, amongst a range of other things that we've heard this evening. But the crux to this is, what this will mean is that every Australian will be locked out of their Google account, their Yahoo account, their Microsoft account until they verify their age, which I think is quite incredible. I think it's unbelievable, actually.
If this happens, it is the death of a free and open internet. It has nothing to do with children and everything to do with surveillance.
Right, and that's the whole point. He hit it right on the nail. It has nothing to do with protecting, as they say, children coming on the internet and, verifying their age and whatnot. No, it really, at the end of the day, as the guy said, when you are locked out of all of your accounts, your mailing accounts, your emailing accounts, your social media accounts, you got to think like if you are a sole proprietor business owner and you own a particular business, you got a certain Akim, that own a business outside, and they have to use social media for branding, marketing, things of that nature. Imagine, them being locked out of all of their accounts and stuff like that, Because now what it is they're policing you by surveilling you on what you're really doing. And if you're not doing what it is that they expect for you to be doing, then guess what? They can lock you out of your account. All right. So you want to talk about total control. This is where we're headed. And we've been telling you, beginning with Elder Apostle Tahar, all right, Elder Apostle Gabar, Elder Apostle Ramlab, Elder Apostle Rakah on down. OK, and we're finally here and you're seeing it right before, your very eyes. Let's continue.
These laws and codes, your child will need to hand over sensitive biometric data, facial scans, documents, or some sort of personally identifying information to companies like TikTok the moment they turn 16. TikTok will store that information in servers in Beijing and use it for God knows what. And the saddest thing of all is that we have asked these companies to do it. And some of the people campaigning for this outcome are actually journalists. Can you believe that? Journalists asking for more government surveillance, more restrictions, and the end of a free and open internet. If this bothers you as much as it bothers me, please write to your local member. Show these lawmakers that this path is the wrong one.
And see, we understand he doesn't know what's going on, but we, the prophets, we understand what's going on. And like Elder Yashawamba always says, we cannot be offended at prophecy. Remember, the scripture says that this man will try to establish his enterprise. And when you go into that word enterprise, it goes into that, the wisdom and knowledge of him being successful. OK, this is wisdom. OK, that's been fed to Esau on the left hand side to put all of this together. But what he doesn't understand is the Lord has him in a trick bag, because Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is only going to allow for him to get so far before this system crashes. And that's exactly what's going to happen. And Abaratazar will show you that in the precepts. But let's continue.
Well, joining me on the panel this week is Sky News contributor James Bolt and James Willis of the Daily Telegraph. James Bolt, let's start with you. I mean, this is something that our team, your team on skynews.com.au has been covering very closely. And we seem to have come to this situation where children aren't banned, despite all the bluster, despite all of the government propaganda, which journalists are just dutifully, as if they're stenographers, just reprinting these press releases about how we're going to protect kids from harm. Then Annika Wells stands up at a press conference and says, oh, yeah, no, they can just watch it anyway.
Yeah, so what we have here is a case of the government wanting to be seen to be doing something. Now, it started out with a really beneficial, hard to argue with proposition that we do want to protect kids from bullying on Instagram and TikTok and all of the negative mental health effects that were coming there. Then when you get into trying to draft a policy, you're not taking the bird's eye view, you're not taking your time because you have to be doing something as a government. And then we get these things like YouTube, where we bring in these regulations that don't actually stop kids accessing things, but do bring in stuff that Alexandria was talking about age verification. It's the lack of thought through, calm policy making that really gets me on this one. And it's something that governments are just doing over and over again.
Yeah, and James Willis, there's also an element of a political divide which is growing. And the coalition was lockstep in favour of this up until very recently. And now there appears to be this political divide that's breaking out. And the Liberal Party, very unhappy with Julie Eamon-Grant, the Safety Commissioner. They have obviously asked for an investigation into the code. And the Liberal Party position now is that this whole search engine verification process, which isn't legislation, it's a code. It is someone who is unelected who is going to enforce this on Australians. They think that that's too much power for one person to have. It's creating the battleground for a very interesting legislative debate.
Yeah, and I also think that where we've had the challenges here, Jack, in the early stages of trying to roll this out is, number one, is trying to say to some parties that they are exempt, while other parties are going to be hit with this in full blast. Now, they squibbed it on YouTube by seemingly suggesting that YouTube would be exempt from this, and then at the last minute saying, no, YouTube had to be included. But then you've got all these other platforms, and you look at the apps that you've got on a mobile phone now, the games, the platforms that kids use. I mean, they're exempting computer games from all of this, live sort of video game sites. So everyone that's exempt is saying, well, how good are we? and everyone else is saying, well, this is unfair. So that was never going to work properly. In regards to some of the Big Brother stuff, I think you're right. Like, from the very initial proposition of trying to keep the internet safe for kids, we are now getting to an area where people have the right to be concerned about what data is being shared all over the internet. In saying that, I feel like already, certainly if you've got a social media profile or a LinkedIn profile or any sort of social media online or a website, then a lot of your information is out there. To sort of force this is a different story, and I understand the TikTok concern given they are Chinese owned. But in the early stages, I'm starting to worry about just how widespread this is going to be, whether it goes into the free speech stuff that the government's been trying to get up as well. But I think the big issue here is the divide between saying Instagram are part of this, YouTube are now part of this, but these other platforms that might be harmful for kids, that might be distracting for kids, that might be stopping kids from being kids, are going to get a free ride. So far, you give the government a big fat F for the way that they've rolled this out.
Yeah, it's a lack of clarity on it, James, as well. And I mean, you know, the road to hell is always paved with good intention.
Yeah, so, you know, that's pretty much it. That's really all we need on that. Now, what's interesting is, as I stated before, this is all playing out, going way back. And, you know, remember, you had a man by the name of Jay Rockefeller who stated this about the internet. Let's check this out.
Tomorrow, a full committee hearing on cybersecurity. And this comes within our purview on this committee. And not trying to be dramatic about it, when the internet was invented, everybody fell flat in their face. They were so thrilled. And the world began to do business in a different way. Now, both the President Bush's Director of National Intelligence, Mike McConnell, who I greatly respect, and President Obama's Director of National Intelligence, Admiral Blair, who I greatly respect, have labeled cybersecurity perpetrated through the internet as the #1 national hazard of attack on the homeland in West Virginia, in West Virginia, America, or anywhere else. So, I mean, it really almost makes you ask the question, would it have been better if we never invented the internet and had to use paper and pencil or whatever? And that's a stupid thing to say, but it has genuine consequence, because it's on the internet that these acts of shutting down, you know, they have the television saying that, ads every day saying that the Department of Defense is attacked 3 million times a day, and it's true. Everybody is attacked. Anybody can do it. People say, well, it's China and Russia, but there could be, you know, some kid in Latvia doing the same thing. I mean, it's an individual act. It doesn't require a sleeper cell. It doesn't require any, ammonia or explosives. It's just an act. And yet it's an act which can shut this country down. Shut down its electricity system, its banking system, shut down really anything that we have to offer. It is an awesome problem. On the Intelligence Committee, we were taken for a full day to discuss, to a undisclosed place in Virginia to discuss this. It is a fearsome, awesome problem, to speak. I mean, obviously it's broader than that too. I wonder where this stands with you, what your thoughts are, and what you think we ought to be doing about it.
And so, you know, he made that statement way back then, you know, but that was only because of, you know, to place fear mongering amongst the masses of the people. Really, the reason why he declared it as a national threat, okay, is because they knew ahead of time that if they didn't get control of policing and surveilling what people say and do on the internet, then it would bring them down out of power. All right. That's why you see they're losing control of the narrative now. So they have to do something where now they have the technology to do so. This is where their AI comes in, because AI then will control, you know, what gets uploaded, AI will control what can, be granted, what will be declined, this, that, and the third, what's good for you, what's not good for you. All right. This is where we're headed. And so now that brings me to, let me see here. We don't need that. All right. That brings me to this. Now, this is from the Rockefeller Scenarios of Innovation PDF file, which you can look this up on Google. And we are on page 23. And we are in the form of technology in lockstep. So I'm just going to read this through really quickly. All right. And then we're going to get some precepts and close out. It says, while there is no way of accurately predicting what the important technological advancements will be in the future, the scenario narratives point to areas where conditions may enable or accelerate the development of certain kinds of technologies. Now, keep in mind, this report came out in 2010. All right. So even though the technology that we have today wasn't around back in 2010, all right, they're just putting the sort of scenarios on what they want to play out. Now that they have the technology in place, there's so many different ways they can go about it, but they just have to choose the lesser of them not being found out to, hey, they're trying to do this or they're trying to take over this. They're trying to keep a balance where they have the people under their, under the thumbs where they're controlling them, pulling the strings and causing distractions. But then at the same time, they're trying to introduce their, as I stated before, their new world order. So it goes on to say, thus, for each scenario, we offer a sense of the context for technological innovation, taking into consideration the pace, geography, and key creators. We also suggest a few technology trends and applications that could flourish in each scenario. It says technological innovation at lockstep is largely driven by government and is focused on issues of national security and health and safety. Most technological improvements are created by and for developed countries shaped by governments' dual desire to control and monitor their citizens. It says in states with poor governance, large-scale projects that fail progress abound. So check out these dot points. It says technology trends and applications we might see. It says scanners using advanced functional magnetic resonance imaging technology become the norm at airports and other public areas to detect abnormal behavior that may indicate antisocial intent. So this is where your facial recognition cameras are placed up. They showed you this in the movie Minority Report with Tom Cruise. All right, keep in mind, this report came out in 2010. All right, you're already starting to see this go up in airports. This is already up in airports, especially here in Australia. It says, in the aftermath of the pandemic scares, smarter packaging for food and beverages is applied first by big companies, producers in business to business environment, and then adopted for individual products and consumers. New diagnoses are developed to detect communicable diseases. The application of health screening also changes. Screening becomes a prerequisite for release from a hospital or prison, successfully slowing the spread of many diseases. You already know where that's going. Next one, it says telepresence technologies respond to the demand for less expensive, lower bandwidth, sophisticated communication systems for populations who travel is restricted. But here's the ultimate one, the last dot point. It says driven by protectionism and national security concerns, nations create their own independent, regionally defined IT networks, mimicking China's firewalls. Governments have varying degrees of success in policing internet traffic, but these efforts nevertheless fracture the World Wide Web. Okay, so they want the governments like I think it was Nick Rockefeller, one of you brothers can correct me if I'm wrong. He made the statement, said, I don't give me all the money and I don't care who's in a power to run the country, right? What sort of laws they create or whatever the case may be. This is why the elites, they put the onus back on whoever they set up in power to run the nation. Well, however you want to implement it, just implement it as long as it leads to the main goal. Okay, so what you're going to see over in the next, from now up into the next few months, not just here in Australia but other nations as well, they too, in their own special way, they're going to be implementing different things for this very same lockstep. For an example, if we come back to Google, you had Starmer in the UK talks about policing the internet. All right, I spelled this name wrong. Right. Let me see here. Right here. Starmer is outsourcing censorship, right? Now, let me see if I go to the news. All right, let's see. Britain is losing its free speech and America could be next. Yeah. Here you go. Police unit in England to monitor online signs of anti-migrant disorder. So see, in the UK, they're using terrorism, okay, and also illegal immigrants to police the internet. Okay, and that's the point of what I'm trying to get at. Every nation, they're going to implement it in a different way. Here in Australia, they're trying to use age verification. In the UK, they're using illegal immigrants and terrorism to police the internet. Do you not see the connection? So once again, now let me get that quote. Let's see if right. It was John Mayer Rothschild. I think I said Rockefeller earlier. If I did, Salakia, please forgive me. That was my error. But John Mayer Rothschild said in 1790, "Permit me to issue and control the money of a nation, and I care not who makes the laws." You see that? Nathan Rothschild also said, no, I think it was, John Mayer Rothschild. Yeah. John Mayer Rothschild said that. All right. So as you see there, okay, when the elites have everything in their possession and control, they put people in power that infiltrate governments and whatnot. And they don't care what sort of laws or whatever they make, as long as it leads up to the ultimate agenda, all right, that they put in place from the beginning. So that's why I showed you different scenarios, whether here in Australia, how they're using age verification to implement by cracking down on the internet. And then I've also showed you what you can look up. Starmer in the UK, he wants to police and crack down on social media. All right. So different countries, they're going to use different scenarios to implement this change. But guess what? It's all going to lead to one destination, and that's their new world order. All right. So let's get ready to close out and get a few precepts. All right. One of the first precepts I want to get, Isaiah chapter 10, verse 1. It says, "Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed." All right. And so Esau, he's known by the laws that he makes. Matter of fact, there's another scripture in Psalms. Let me see if I can remember it. This is Psalms 94:20. It says, "Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by a law?" You see? So this is why we tell you brothers and a few sisters that watch us, Micah 2:10, this place is not our rest, man. Okay. They are about to start cracking down. All right. Let's go to Amos 8:11 real quick. All right. Because this is the famine of the word. This is prophecy. It says, behold, the days come, saith the Lord Yahweh, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst of water, but of hearing the words of Yahweh. Yeah, because pretty soon, once this is implemented globally, okay, we're not going to be able to upload our lessons. We're not going to be out there on the highways and byways, man, putting up lessons, putting up daily edification and exhortation videos, okay? Digital epistles. All right. And with them added in YouTube to the play, all right, the order from the apostles, was put out long ago that our main focus is to upload the videos on YouTube. But if they put in this digital ID system where you have to log in and prove your age verification, they are given access, to our accounts, which they've already got access to accounts, but they just using this tool, right? You have to understand, when we enter into this social credit score system and we're putting up things that goes against the status quo, we could be locked out of our accounts. You see? So you got to understand where Esau is going with this. And we told you, okay, those of you who was mocking the prophets, scoffing, laughing, guess what? Okay, jokes is on you now, because we told you so. The joke is on you, right? Let's get some more. Let's go to Job 5:12, because as I stated earlier, he's only going to get so far in establishing his new world order. But this is Job 5:12. It says he disappointed the devices of the crafty, because this is just one of Esau's many devices that's going to lead him to establishing his digital dystopian of a society. Okay. It says so that their hands cannot perform the enterprise, because eventually the Lord is only going to allow for Esau to get so far. But as you read Job, the 20th chapter, it says when he begins to eat, okay, when he begins to fill his belly, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua shall cast down the fury of his wrath upon this kingdom. Okay, that's why the scripture says, which we'll grab right after this, Lord's will, Revelation 3:10, the hour of temptation. Because Yahweh Bashem Yahushua is going to test you. He's going to put the power in this man's hand to get this going. And he wants to see, after telling us how this is going to play out, he wants to see who's going to listen, who's going to falter and trust in the shadow of Egypt, who's going to trust in the beast system. Right? Who's going to take the charagma? Right? Let me read this again. Job 5:12. He disappointed the devices of the crafty so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. Now, when you look up that word enterprise,
Strong's H 8454, Tushia.
it says wisdom, sound knowledge, success, sound or efficient wisdom, abiding success. And that success really ultimately is talking about them establishing, their new world order granted by the RFID micro CHIP. They think that they're going to succeed. Okay. When you go into it, Strong's definition says, meaning to substantiate, support, or by implication, ability, direct help in purpose and undertaking, intellectual understanding. Okay. And see, the scriptures tells us in Ezekiel, okay, they were wiser than Daniel. Okay. They think that the knowledge that they have obtained, which they gather from Yahweh Bashem Yahushua on the left-hand side, that's going to over trump, okay, the righteousness of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, right? Verse 13, it says, he taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the froward is carried headlong. Why is that? Now, when you go to Proverbs 21, all right, let me see here. Proverbs 21:30. It says, there is no wisdom nor understanding nor counsel against the Lord Yahweh. This is why his system is going to fail. Yahweh Bashem Yahushua has these devils in the trick bag. So that's why he said in Job that he's going to disappoint their crafty counsel. because he's only going to allow for them to get so far before, let's get that in Job, the 20th chapter. And I'm going to start at verse 22. It says, in the fullness of his sufficiency, this is speaking of Esau, Edom, he shall be in straits, and every hand of the wicked, all right, shall come upon him. Speaking of those laborers, right? Verse 23. And when he is about to fill his belly, when he's about to establish his new world order, all right, when he's mandated the charagma, the RFID microchip, what's going to happen? It says the Most High, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. This is why the scripture says we are to be patient. Okay, we got to go through the suffering. Okay. And if you take that charagma mentioned in Revelation, the 14th chapter, you're going to be toasted, man, through fire and brimstone. All right. If you receive that charagma. Okay. That's what that second death is going into. You're going to be destroyed by thermonuclear fire. OK, or as it says also in Revelation, the 16th chapter. OK, you're going to develop a cancerous pus. OK, a grievous noisome. OK, which goes into a cancerous pus. OK, an ulcer, like a boil. It says, verse 24, he shall flee from the iron weapon, which is what? The ICBM missile, and the bow of steel shall strike him through. And it is drawn and cometh out of the body, yea, the glittering sword cometh out of his galls. Terrors are upon him. Right? Now, I want to go Revelation 3:10. Since I quoted, it says, because thou hast kept the word of my patience. Keeping the word of Yahweh Bashem Shai's patience is what? Understanding this truth and being steadfast in it. You understand the latter end because you've came into this wise counsel, right? As it says real quick, I got to get that precept in Psalms. I think it's 73. Yep. Psalm 73 and 17. Until I went into the sanctuary of Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, then understood I their end. All right. Remember, I showed you Akim about a month or two ago. You had something that was called the that whistleblower, the looking glass mirror. And what did he say in the looking glass mirror? Right. He said, then, I understood that it wasn't the end of the world, but I understood it was the end of their world. Right. And by their world, he was referencing the top banking elites, the Edomites. All right. And we share the same sentiment since we came in the sanctuary, which is this truth, this wise counsel from on high. We understand their latter end. And see, when you understand how all of this is going to play out, this is comfort. This is comforting your spirit. Because when all hell breaks loose, everybody's going to be in pandemonium. They're going to be in dire straits. They're going to be in darkness because they don't know what's going on and they don't know the latter end. That's why the scripture says, blessed is he who readeth. All right. You're being steadfast in the faith because you know the latter end. You know that this devil is not going to win. It's written. It's written that the saints, beginning with the elect, is going to get the victory. OK, so go back to Revelation 3:10. It says, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also would keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. So Yahweh Bashem Yahushua says, look, when all of this goes down and stuff, OK, I'm going to make sure you're protected. I'm going to make sure that you're safe. Nothing is going to happen to you because you trusted in my word. You've read, you understood the prophecy. You have faith. And so when all of these calamities come upon the earth, when everything goes down, when the prophecies are fulfilled, I'm going to make sure that you eat. I'm going to make sure that you're covered. Take no thought for your life, as Yahweh Shai told us in Matthew, the 6th chapter. You see? And so this is what we have to understand, as the scripture says in Isaiah, 33 and 6. It says, and wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times and strength of salvation. You want to be in a position where your faith is so strong, you cannot be moved. It doesn't matter if Esau threatens you. If you don't take the charagma, you're going to be beheaded. So what? You should understand death. You're just transitioning from one realm to the next realm. That shouldn't faze you, because it's already written. We got the victory. We just have to let these things play out. You see, we have to let all of these things play out, man. All right, let's get Habakkuk 2 and 5. It says, yea, also because he transgressed by wine, okay, going into his philosophies, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And that's what he's doing. All right, because he's going to gather everyone into this digital slave system, which really that's what it is. OK, he's trying to establish, all right, this new world order, just like in the Tower of Babel, man. All right. But see, the Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai ultimately is going to have them all in derision when it's all said and done. Because as we read in Proverbs, the 21st chapter, there is no counsel against Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. OK, the only ones who are going to be ensnared and taken back from this devil's, this devil's, enterprise is those who are not found written in the book. OK, they're going to get caught up. All right. They have no faith to begin with. So they're going to go wherever it is that they can try to survive instead of putting their trust in Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai at the end of the day, So I'm going to end it off there. That's pretty much all I have. Just an update dealing with this lockstep death to the internet here in Australia. This will come on a global scale. So, keep watching, keep enduring, keep praying. And I pray that this lesson was edifying and also exhorting at the same time. And I want to give all praise, glory, and honor be to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah HaKodash. Double honors once again to the beloved apostles and elders of Great Millstone, better known as GMS, who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect, the tabernacle of David. It's on to the next. Abaratazah, Lord's will. Shalom.